On August 1st, 2008, a group of mountaineers began their final ascent on K2, the world's second highest peak, known for its deadly reputation. After weeks of preparation, they were determined to reach the summit. But what followed was one of the deadliest days in mountaineering history. Of the 30 climbers attempting the ascent, 11 would not return. This is the tragic story of the 2008 K2 disaster, where ambition collided with nature's fiercest elements. To understand how everything unraveled, we must trace the expedition from the beginning. Climbing K2 requires not only physical endurance, but a profound mental resolve. Unlike Mount Everest, K2 presents a far more perilous and unpredictable climb, known for its steep ice fields, avalanches, and lethal weather changes. The idea of climbing it haunts even the most experienced mountaineers. Despite knowing the risks, the climbers pressed forward, driven by the dream of conquering the savage mountain. Among the climbers were several nationalities: Dutchman Wilco van Rooyen, Italian Marco Confortola, and the Korean team led by Go Mi-young. For some, this was the pinnacle of their careers. Others were chasing personal redemption, hoping K2 would mark their place in mountaineering history. They placed their trust in their guides and in the hope of clear weather on summit day. Their journey began with an arduous trek to base camp, where K2's foreboding silhouette loomed, as if warning them of the dangers ahead. Base camp sat at 16,400 feet, and from there, the climbers would begin a series of acclimatization climbs. The goal was to prepare their bodies for the deadly combination of thin air and intense physical exertion. However, K2's infamous bottleneck awaited, an almost vertical ice wall lined with dangerous hanging seracs. It was here that many climbers would face their greatest challenge. As the days wore on, the weather reports became unpredictable, and the climbers faced mounting pressure. But the summit window opened on August 1st, and the group decided it was now or never. The push for the summit began just after midnight. They moved cautiously through the pitch-black night, their headlamps flickering like stars against the daunting backdrop of K2. The first to reach the bottleneck were forced to wait for hours as ropes were fixed along the ice wall. As the minutes ticked by, an uneasy tension filled the air. At over 8,000 meters, the death zone had a tight grip on the climbers. Every breath felt like a monumental effort, and time was slipping away. Disaster struck in the early afternoon. As the first climbers reached the summit, an avalanche thundered down the bottleneck, wiping out the crucial fixed ropes. Panic spread through the group. Without those ropes, the descent became treacherous, and the climbers were stranded in one of the most unforgiving environments on Earth. Wilco van Rooyen, one of the survivors, later described the scene as pure chaos. Climbers were losing coordination, some succumbing to the effects of altitude sickness, and others were struck by falling ice. Marco Confortola, whose toes would later be amputated due to frostbite, recounted the surreal experience of watching fellow climbers fall to their deaths. The descent was no longer about getting down safely. It was about survival, fighting against the mountain and one's own failing body. As the sun set, the temperature plummeted to below -30 degrees Celsius. Many climbers were left alone in the dark, unable to find the way down. Some took fatal wrong turns and fell into crevasses. Others, disoriented, collapsed and froze in the bitter cold. Even the most experienced climbers like Gerard McDonnell, an Irishman with a strong reputation, couldn't escape the fatal grip of K2 that night. One by one, the mountain claimed its victims. Survivors spoke of being abandoned, struggling to help their friends while battling their own fading strength. By dawn, the mountain was littered with the bodies of those who had dared to challenge it. The survivors who made it down alive carried the weight of their fallen comrades. Their descent was not a triumphant return, but a somber escape from the clutches of death. Helicopters were eventually sent to rescue the injured, but for many, it was too late. The aftermath of the tragedy left the mountaineering community in shock. In the wake of this disaster, questions were raised about the organization, the preparedness of the teams, and the decision-making that led to so many deaths. But as always on K2, nature has the final word. The 2008 tragedy serves as a brutal reminder that no matter how skilled or determined a climber might be, K2 demands the ultimate respect, and sometimes it demands more.